There's a moment in every relationship when you realize something's changed, but not in a loud, dramatic way. No slammed doors, no screaming. Just a quiet shift. Like when you walk into a room that used to smell like home and realize it doesn't anymore. For me, that moment happened on a Friday evening, under string lights and cheap jazz music, in a banquet hall rented by Lisa's insurance company. She'd been buzzing about the party all week. New dress hanging on the closet door, nails done, makeup routine dialed in with the precision of a surgeon. She even practiced smiling in the mirror. I saw her once before she noticed I was standing there. At the time, I thought it was cute. Looking back, I wonder who that smile was really meant for. Lisa had insisted I come, even though it wasn't my scene. "It's good networking," she said. "Besides, they always ask about you. Everyone loves you." That last part didn't feel true. Her coworkers didn't know me. I'd met a few once at a holiday event 3 years ago. She introduced me like a coworker. "This is Mark," she'd said. "No, my husband. Just Mark." I arrived late. Work held me up. Lisa had gone ahead without me, which was fine, I guess. That was her world, not mine. But the moment I walked into the hotel's ballroom, I saw it. Her. Lisa stood near the bar, laughing. Not just polite work function laughing. The real kind. Head tilted back, hand on her chest, eyes locked on some guy I didn't recognize. He had a blazer with the sleeves pushed up like it was still 1987, and the kind of haircut that screams, "I hit the gym, and I want you to know it." He said something to her, close just under her ear, and she touched his wrist in that way people touch someone they want to touch more. Not dramatic, not inappropriate, but not nothing. I stood there longer than I should have, watching, pretending to fix my tie, pretending I didn't feel like I'd just been punched in the chest. Then I started walking toward them. As I approached, Lisa saw me. Her smile didn't even flicker. "Oh, Mark," she said, too brightly. "This is Jonah. He's with the external accounts team. We've been working on the new client portfolios together." Jonah. Of course he had a name like Jonah. I shook his hand. Firm grip. Eye contact that lingered just a second longer than polite. The guy had presence, I'll give him that. "Hey man, heard a lot about you," he said, like we were old friends. Lisa added, "Yeah, Jonah's hilarious. We've been cracking up all evening." "Yeah," I said flatly, then turned to her. "Can I talk to you for a sec?" She raised an eyebrow. "We were just in the middle of. Just a second." Jonah held up his hands. "All good. I'll grab another drink." And just like that, he vanished, probably to go charm someone else's wife. Lisa pulled me aside, but not far. We were still in *T of people she worked with. Her eyes darted around the room like she was checking for witnesses. "What's going on?" she asked, voice low, but laced with that sharp edge she only used when she was annoyed. "I saw the way he touched you." She blinked. "Oh my God, Mark. Are you serious right now?" "I'm serious. He's a coworker. You're being paranoid." That word, paranoid, it hit like a slap. She said it with such calm, like I was the one being unreasonable, like I'd imagined the whole thing. "I'm just saying," I replied. "You seemed close." She crossed her arms. "You want me to not have friends at work now?" "I didn't say that." "Then what are you saying?" I opened my mouth but nothing came out, because I didn't know how to say it, how to explain that I wasn't crazy, that my gut wasn't lying to me. Eventually, I just said, "It felt off." "Well, it's not," she snapped, grabbing her drink and walking away before I could say anything else. I spent the next hour pretending everything was normal, smiling, shaking hands, making small talk about weather and interest rates, all while watching Lisa from across the room as she floated from person to person like she belonged to someone else's world. And maybe she did. We left around 10. In the car, silence sat between us like a third passenger. When we got home, Lisa kicked off her heels and poured herself a glass of wine without offering me any. She looked too relaxed, like the party hadn't left any residue on her, like there wasn't something still buzzing under the surface. I was in the kitchen when she said it, casually, like she was talking about weekend plans. I think we should consider an open relationship. I froze. Come again. She took a sip of wine. I've been reading about it. A lot of couples do it. It helps them reconnect. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. I think it might save our marriage, she added, still not looking at me. Save it from what? From becoming what it's already become. And there it was. She said I'd been cold, that I stopped caring, that I shut down emotionally after my dad passed away, which, to be fair, wasn't entirely wrong. But I never stopped showing up. I never stopped trying. You're saying we should open up the marriage? I said slowly. Because I grieved my father? She sighed. It's not just that. You've been controlling, Mark. You don't trust me. Should I? She didn't answer. She just drank her wine and looked out the window like the conversation bored her. That's when I knew. I knew this wasn't about some new age relationship solution or salvaging our bond. This was about permission. She wanted to do something she'd already started doing, and she wanted to stop feeling guilty about it. She wanted me to be the one who handed her the key to walk out the door. I didn't say anything else that night. I went upstairs, changed, and sat on the edge of our bed for what felt like an hour. She stayed downstairs. That silence said everything. Because the truth was, she didn't want an open marriage. She just didn't want to be in this one anymore. After that night, things weren't the same. Not on the surface. Lisa still kissed me goodbye before work, still asked me if I wanted anything from the store, still filled the house with her usual sounds. But something underneath had shifted, and I couldn't unfeel it. It was like standing in your own kitchen and realizing the floorboards are rotting beneath your feet. Everything still looked familiar, but nothing felt stable anymore. She didn't bring up the open relationship again, and I didn't press. But the damage was done. The idea had already been spoken out loud, released into the air between us like smoke. You can't put it back in the matchbox. Instead of confronting her, I watched. Quietly, patiently, because deep down, I didn't believe that conversation came out of nowhere. You don't suddenly ask your husband to rewrite the rules of marriage unless you've already started playing a different game. And the more I watched, the more things stopped making sense. She started working late. A lot. That wasn't new. Lisa's job had always been demanding. But the frequency changed. 3, 4 times a week she'd text me. Staying late for reports or Jonah's team pulled some last-minute stuff. Sorry. Always some generic excuse. Never any detail. She'd come home after 9 with perfect makeup and just a hint of perfume still lingering, like she'd reapplied before the drive back. And her mood, it was unpredictable. Sometimes too cheerful, like she was trying too hard. Other times distant, eyes glazed like she wasn't even in the room. Then came the passwords. She changed the PIN on her phone. That one stung. We'd never been that couple, the ones who snooped or kept secrets. We shared everything. Phones, emails, calendars. I used to joke that she could drain my bank account or hack my Amazon just for fun. Now I couldn't even check the weather on her screen. I asked her once, lightly, "When did you change your phone code?" She shrugged. "IT recommends it every few months. Security." "Since when do you listen to IT?" She laughed but didn't answer. A few days later, I caught a glimpse of her laptop screen as she shut it the moment I walked in. Reflex fast, like a kid hiding a test score. I didn't say anything, but that was the first time I felt the cold edge of something I hadn't felt in years. Suspicion. And then there were the small things. The things that make no sense on their own, but together become undeniable. Once, I hugged her when she got home, and her coat smelled like cologne. Not mine. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was there, sharp and unfamiliar. When I pulled back and asked, "Who've you been hugging?" I meant it half joking. She didn't even blink. "Probably Jonah. You know how people are at work. Everyone hugs. It's not a big deal." I nodded, but I didn't forget. Another time, I was helping her unpack after a business trip to St. Louis. As I pulled her suitcase off the bed, a glossy brochure slid out of the side pocket. I picked it up. It was for a couple's spa resort. Not in St. Louis. Somewhere up north. I held it up. "What's this?" She looked down at it for barely a second before grabbing it from my hand. Oh, the hotel was giving those out. Probably some promotion. I didn't even look at it. Then she crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. She didn't even look at it, but somehow knew what it was. That stuck with me. I started keeping notes. Not actual ones, not yet, but mental tallies. Missed calls. Odd texts. Times when she came back with dinner for herself, but forgot I existed. I felt like I was slowly being erased from the picture frame. Like she was living a double life. And I was just the guy feeding the cat while she was out, finding herself. But I still didn't have proof. Just shadows. Whispers. Doubt. Until one night, a small, stupid moment, shattered the wall I'd built to protect myself. She was asleep beside me. Couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't touch it. I didn't have the passcode anyway. But I saw the preview light up. Hey, miss you already. No name. Just that. I stared at it, heart pounding, mind screaming. The message disappeared in seconds. I lay there, eyes open in the dark, trying to breathe like nothing happened. Trying to pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But everything in me was screaming now, louder than before. The pieces were falling into place. I remembered how, a few months back, she'd started hitting the gym again, started buying new lingerie I hadn't seen her wear. How she always angled her screen away from me on the couch, like she was protecting some state secret. How she once called me Jonah, by accident while we were making coffee. I laughed it off at the time. Didn't sleep much, huh? She smiled sheepishly. Long day. But now it all made sense. I didn't confront her that night. Couldn't. I wasn't ready. Instead, I started planning. I wasn't going to be the guy who caught his wife cheating and collapsed. I wasn't going to yell or beg. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of acting like I was crazy or jealous. I wanted the truth, not her version of it. So I made a quiet vow. The next time she said she was going on a business trip, I'd follow. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I already knew I couldn't. The opportunity came faster than I expected. On a Wednesday morning, while I was pouring coffee, Lisa mentioned it like it was nothing. Just another logistical detail in her busy calendar. I've got a seminar on Friday, she said, scrolling through her phone. Nearby city. Probably won't be back until late. I didn't look at her right away. Which city? She named one about 90 minutes away. Close enough to be inconvenient. Far enough to be believable. I nodded. Sounds exhausting. She smiled. It is, but it'll be good for my career. That afternoon, I requested Friday off work. I didn't tell anyone why. I rented a plain gray sedan from a place across town, paid cash, and parked it 2 blocks away from our house the night before. It felt ridiculous. Like I was stepping into someone else's life, but I was already too far in to turn back. Friday came. Lisa kissed me goodbye like always. No hesitation. No guilt. That hurt more than anything. I'll text you when I get there, she said. She didn't. I waited 30 minutes, then followed. I kept my distance. 3 cars back. Sometimes 4. She drove straight to her office, which I hadn't expected, and parked like it was a normal workday. I waited across the street, heart pounding, watching the entrance. An hour later, he walked out. Jonah. Same blazer. Same confident stride. He glanced around once, then headed straight for her car. She stepped out, smiling before he even reached her. They didn't hug. Not yet. But the familiarity between them was unmistakable. He opened her door for her. She didn't object. They drove out of the city together. I followed. The highway stretched long and quiet. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was focused. Every mile felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. They exited near a cluster of fast food signs and gas stations. Not the city she'd mentioned. Not anywhere professional. The motel sign appeared suddenly, Willow Creek Inn. Flickering neon. Cheap landscaping. The kind of place you don't tell people about. I parked across the lot, angled behind a van. I took photos with my phone. Shaky, imperfect, but clear enough. Jonah's arm slid around her waist. She leaned into him like it was instinct. They didn't rush. That was the worst part. Inside the room, the curtains stayed open. I wish I could say I turned away. I didn't. I saw them stand close. I saw her hands on his chest. I saw them disappear into each other's space like gravity was pulling them together. No hesitation. No secrecy. Just comfort. Like this wasn't new. I lowered my phone and stared straight ahead. My chest felt hollow, like something vital had been removed without anesthesia. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there. Hours passed. Cars came and went. Lights turned off and on. At some point, I realized my hands had stopped shaking. I slept in the car until dawn. When the sun rose, I took one last photo, their car still there, and drove home quietly, like a man returning from a funeral no one else knew had happened. Lisa came home that evening smelling like motel soap and lies. I hugged her. She hugged me back. And in that moment, with proof sitting in my phone and clarity burning behind my eyes, I knew something irreversible had happened. I didn't lose my wife that day. I found the truth. I always thought if I ever caught my wife cheating, I'd lose it. Yell. Throw something. Demand answers. Make a scene big enough for the neighbors to hear and the walls to remember. But when the truth finally settled into my bones, I didn't explode. I went quiet. It's strange how silence can hold more weight than shouting ever could. My rage didn't come out in flames, calcified into cold clarity. Every word, every excuse I used to accept now felt like background noise I could finally tune out. Lisa came home from her seminar around 7:30 that Friday night. She wore a beige coat, hair tied back in a casual bun, like she just wrapped up a PowerPoint presentation. Her face was calm, relaxed, no tension, no guilt. "Hey," she said, kicking off her heels. "You eat." I nodded from the couch. "Yeah, leftovers." She kissed me on the cheek, too quickly, like we were roommates, like we were pretending. I asked her how the seminar went. She gave me a short recap, peppered with enough vague buzzwords to pass as truth. I nodded along, didn't challenge her, didn't flinch. She never suspected a thing. Later that night, I pulled out the motel photos. Not to confront her, not yet, just to study them. I zoomed in, scanned her expressions. The way she looked at him, her posture, her hand on his shoulder. That wasn't guilt. That was ease. That was comfort. They'd done this before. The next morning, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. No yelling, no drama, just logistics. It was a small office in the corner of a building filled with dentists and chiropractors, the kind of place you'd never look twice at. I sat across from a woman named Carol, who looked like someone's aunt and spoke like someone who'd seen too many people ignore too many red flags. "I have photos," I told her, "and I want it done clean." Carol nodded. Infidelity's a strong foundation in court, but clean doesn't mean painless. "I know. What do you want to come away with?" I had to think. Not revenge. Not money. Just freedom. "I want out," I said. "And I want her to understand this isn't negotiable." She gave me a slight smile. "Then we start here." Over the next few weeks, I worked quietly. I hired a private investigator just to be thorough. He found more than I expected. Receipts from restaurants 2 cities over. A hotel charge for a boutique stay in Chicago. A trip she told me was for a conference. The room was registered to Jonah, paid with Lisa's credit card. There were texts too. He recovered them. Their tone was casual, warm, even mundane. But that made it worse somehow, how normal betrayal can feel to the ones doing it. One of them read, "Let's just do it again next month. He won't question anything." Another, "Wish I could wake up next to you every morning." That one hit different. I compiled everything. Emails, photos, card statements, travel itineraries. Carol built the case like a blueprint, step by step. She said we could serve Lisa whenever I was ready. And still I said nothing. I slept next to her, ate with her, asked about her day. And every time she smiled at me with that tired little curve of her lips, I saw someone else entirely. Not the woman I married. Not the person who held my hand when my dad passed. Not the girl who once danced barefoot in our kitchen while spaghetti boiled over. This was someone else. Someone I didn't know anymore. One night, she got annoyed because I forgot to switch the laundry. "I'm not asking for much, Mark," she said, voice sharp. "Just a little help." And for a moment I almost laughed. She had no idea how far she'd drifted. No idea I'd stopped seeing her as someone to win back. The next morning, I served her the papers. She found them on the kitchen counter. Cream-colored envelope. Her name printed neatly. A cover letter paper-clipped to the top. I wasn't home. I made sure of that. When I returned that evening, I found her sitting at the dining table. Papers spread in front of her like a crime scene. Her mascara was smudged, but her face was dry now, like she'd already done the crying and moved on to denial. "You're divorcing me?" she asked, voice thin. I set my keys down. "Yes, just like that." "Not just like that. You made the first move." She stood. "You could have talked to me." I tilted my head. "Talk to you? About what? The motel? The receipts? Jonah?" Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "You went through my stuff?" "No," I said. "You left the trail yourself. I just followed it." She paced. "So you're just ending it? 10 years? "No," I said quietly. "You ended it. I'm just catching up." And then it began, the cycle. First came denial. "We can fix this. We've been through worse." Then anger. "You've always needed control. Maybe this is about your ego." Then panic. "We can go to therapy. Please, Mark, don't do this." But I didn't shout. Not once. I just listened. And when she finished, I asked, "Are you done?" She sat down, staring, breathing heavily. Her silence was the first honest thing I'd heard in weeks. That night I booked a hotel. I didn't sleep there out of spite. I slept there because I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't lie beside a person who chose someone else and still expected me to be her shelter. I left her the house. Not out of generosity. I just didn't want it. I didn't want the bedroom where she whispered to him on speakerphone. I didn't want the couch where I sat alone while she smiled at her screen. I didn't want the kitchen where we stopped making meals together long before the cheating ever began. Let her keep it. I packed one suitcase and my laptop. That's all. The hotel was quiet, clean, no memories. I slept for 10 hours straight the first night. No dreams. Over the next few weeks, Lisa tried everything. She texted, called, left voicemails filled with nostalgia and regret. She showed up at my office once, waiting outside with coffee like we were in a romantic comedy. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I watched her fall apart from a distance, and I never raised my voice. Not once, because she expected fire. But I gave her ice. People think when something breaks, really breaks, you just move on. But no one tells you that moving on doesn't feel like progress. First, it feels like floating, like your life is still happening, but somewhere else, to someone else, and you're just watching through glass. That's how it was in the weeks after I left. The hotel was small, quiet. I checked in under my middle name, just in case Lisa tried anything. The room had a small window that overlooked the parking lot and a TV that only got 12 channels, but it felt like a castle compared to what I'd left behind. I spent most of my time walking, around the block, past gas stations and strip malls, anywhere that wasn't the house. The air out there didn't smell like her perfume, and that was enough. Divorce proceedings moved fast, probably because I wasn't fighting her for anything. I gave her the house, the furniture. I even let her keep the dog, even though I loved him more than she did. She asked me why I wasn't trying harder to punish her, and I told her the truth. Punishing you would require me to care. I didn't say it to be cruel. I said it because it was the first time in weeks I actually meant something. Around week 3 in the hotel, I got a call from a friend I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, Brian. He owned a small auto repair shop in Wyoming, a few towns over from where he grew up. He said he heard about what happened through mutual friends. "I won't ask details," he said, "but if you need a clean start, I've got a job for you." I didn't hesitate. I packed my things that same weekend, loaded up what little I kept from my marriage. Mostly clothes and a few photos of my kids when they were little, and drove west. I didn't tell Lisa. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe her either. The town was small. The kind where the grocery store still uses handwritten signs and every gas station smells like pine air freshener. Brian put me up in a spare room above the garage until I found my own place. A tiny house outside of town, 1 story, 2 bedrooms, overlooking nothing in particular. But it was quiet, and for the first time in a long time I could breathe. I spent my days elbow deep in engines and oil, my nights sitting on the front porch with a beer, watching the sky turn purple and gold. There was peace in the repetition. Tightening bolts, changing filters, fixing what was broken. Something about that felt right. Brian didn't pry, which I appreciated. He asked how I was settling in, how I liked the town, and if I needed anything. But he never asked about Lisa, and I never offered. I started to sleep through the night again. Not always, but sometimes. I stopped checking my phone every hour. I even stopped expecting to hear her car pull into the driveway, a reflex I hadn't realized I was still carrying. One morning, I walked into a local diner just off Main Street. It was small, with faded booths and a coffee pot that looked older than me. I liked it instantly. That's when I met Rachel. She was pouring coffee at the counter, wiping tables, chatting with the regulars like she'd known them all her life. She looked up when I walked in and smiled. Not the kind of smile that tries too hard, but the kind that just fits. "New face," she said. "You passing through or sticking around?" "Sticking around," I replied. "Just moved here." "Then you're gonna need coffee. Sit anywhere you like." That was it. That was our first conversation. Nothing magical. Nothing dramatic. Just a moment that didn't feel forced. I started coming in more often. First once a week, then twice. Then every morning before work. She never pried either. Never asked why a guy like me, graying hair, worn-out hands, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much, had landed in a place like this. She just poured coffee, smiled, called me sir, for the first month until I finally told her to knock it off. "You don't look like a mark," she said once, teasing. "What do I look like?" She tilted her head. "Someone who's learning how to start over." She was right. Took a while, but eventually we started talking, really talking, about life, music, why the toast always came out a little too dark in that diner. She made me laugh before I even realized I'd forgotten how. It wasn't romantic. Not at first. It was slow, natural, like breathing. We started sitting outside after her shifts. She'd drink tea, I'd sip coffee, and we'd watch the streetlights buzz on one by one. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. Sometimes we just existed next to each other. And somehow that was enough. One evening, after we'd been sitting in silence for nearly an hour, she turned to me and asked, "Did you leave something behind? Or did you run from it?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "Maybe a little of both." She didn't press. She just nodded like she understood. Because maybe she did. The truth is, I didn't come here to be found. I didn't come here to meet someone new or start a love story. I came here to stop hurting. And for the first time in months, that was exactly what was happening. Slowly, quietly, every time I stepped into that diner and saw Rachel's face light up when she saw me, something small in my chest started to thaw. One night, she said, "You don't talk much about your past." I looked down at my coffee, then at her. "There's not much worth revisiting," I said. "Except my kids." She smiled. "You have kids. Jake and Emily. Grown. Good people. Do they know you're here?" "They do. We talk. They're the reason I didn't fall apart completely." Rachel nodded, then reached over the table and tapped my hand once, just lightly. "You're not falling apart now either." And she was right again. A few weeks later, she invited me to her house for dinner. Grilled chicken, canned corn, and mashed potatoes that tasted like something out of a childhood memory. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't talk about the future. We just sat on her porch in the dark. Two people who'd both lost something but weren't looking for replacements. We were just learning how to be okay again. And somehow, In the stillness of that Wyoming night, under a sky full of stars that didn't care what I'd been through, I realized something important. Peace doesn't show up loudly. It sneaks in, through quiet mornings, through shared silence, through the simple kindness of someone who asks nothing from you but your presence. I wasn't healed. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't hurting either. And that felt like progress. It had been 7 months since I left. The sky was clearer in Wyoming, and so was my mind. Then one afternoon, she showed up. Lisa, at the garage. In her arms was a baby, maybe a few months old. She said he was mine. Claimed she got pregnant right before I left. Said she wanted me to know the truth. But something felt off. Too off. A week later, I got a call from a nurse back in our old town. One of the ones who remembered Lisa. She said Lisa had come in for prenatal care already 4 months pregnant. And Jonah had come with her. That was enough. I demanded a paternity test. 2 weeks later, the results confirmed what I already knew. The baby wasn't mine. I sent her a cease and desist through my lawyer. She never showed up again. And the quiet returned. A year later, I married Rachel. It wasn't flashy. Just us, her sister, my kids, and a sunset on a hill. Jake and Emily supported everything. They told me they hadn't seen me this grounded in years. And they were right. The shop was steady. The house, finally mine in more than just paperwork. Rachel made it feel like home. Not because she tried, but because she just was. Lisa disappeared. No more calls. No letters. She became what her choices made her. A past I didn't owe anything to. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure. I needed peace. And I had it. Every morning, I wake up next to someone who doesn't lie, doesn't ask me to be anything but real. She chose me, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And that, in the end, was everything.